So the divine feminine has a little bit of a problem, and I want to break it down today. That's what this video is going to do. I am here today to share with you some downloads that have been coming through from Lilith and some wisdom that's just been coming forth around things that are happening within the collective at the moment, around the sisterhood wound, the divine feminine, and the need to heal right now. So get yourself a nice hot drink, something that's going to be soothing for you, settle back, relax, and enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today, and if you're new here as well, thank you for joining me. It means the world to me that you are here. In today's video, I want to talk to you about the divine feminine, but not just what is the divine feminine. I want to talk about the problem that we have with the divine feminine at this time. And believe me, we have a number, and we also, the divine masculine has a problem as well, and I think that that's a video for another day. There are a number of videos that I've been just fiending to make about the divine feminine for years, but this is a specific problem within the sisterhood that Lilith wants me to speak to, because the downloads have been coming through thick and fast, and at this time it's incredibly important that we talk about it. So that's what I'm here to do. If you're interested to get into it, drop me a like, share it with anyone who you think would also enjoy it, and let me know below in the comments how the sisterhood wound has played out for you in your life and what has come up for you recently, if you don't mind sharing, of course, and the ways in which you are healing your sisterhood wounds, and yeah, what's coming from that for you, what's been coming up with the divine feminine. I'd love to hear. Let me know.
So I actually filmed this a couple of months ago now, and I do just want to preface the video with that for some context, because I think that the way I feel right now is similar but also very different. There's more downloads have come through since I recorded this, and there has just been a lot of developments within the collective and within the world that has obviously been devastating, and I'm feeling a lot of that at the moment. And I just want to emphasize the point that I do make within this video more now, and that is for love, more love and unconditional love. I've been experiencing a lot of spirit activity in the recent months, and especially within the last few weeks. One particular instance I'd like to mention is waking up in the middle of the night and hearing an audible voice saying, "There is always more love, there is always more love." And it was a woman's voice, and that stuck with me. And I can't emphasize this enough in whatever separation, division you are experiencing right now. So I'm sending love to the world and love to you and whatever you're going through right now.
So working with Lilith, the wounds of the sisterhood, the witch wounds, the wounds of the patriarchy, all kind of their own thing, but also overlapping very much so in a way that is inextricable from one another. And the messages that Lilith has been bringing about these wounds from the sisterhood, it's often along with a load of shadow work and deep introspective work to look at where I've been hurt and harmed by others, but then it's also serving to hold up a mirror to the ways in which I know I have perpetuated the cycle of the patriarchy through performative behaviours, through conforming to expectations, people pleasing, and also playing up to the dominant way of the patriarchy and the misogynistic expectations on women to perform, to fawn, to conform, to show up in a way that is pleasing, that is gentle, passive, submissive, calm, friendly, sweet, demeaning, demure, graceful, elegant, composed, soft, pretty, innocent, sweet, virginal, chaste, all of these words that come to mind, right? And all of the things that are demonized about Lilith, being a seductress, being a rebel, being an outcast, someone who chooses to leave, an outlier, someone who is not conforming, someone who will not be lesser than, or will not be spoken down to, or will not acquiesce, will not submit to the will of a man or another, any other. And as a result, Lilith was demonized, of course. All of the stories about Lilith perpetuated within dominant culture portray Lilith as a demon, a demoness, someone who is too dangerous to work with. And obviously then the archetype of Lilith was then reclaimed as a very feminist icon, and therefore Lilith herself also took on that mantle and then shifted to conform to that as well, that expectation of what she was and how she is supposed to be in the world. And I have been receiving downloads that she is not any of those things at all and will not conform to any of those things. However, she is who she wishes to be and who she decides to be in that very, very moment. She is and she isn't. She is all of those things and she's none of those things all at once. She is a complex simplicity. She is a paradox. And working with her necessitates that you dive deep into the ways in which you show up in the world and the ways in which you conform, the ways in which you allow yourself to be molded, consumed, pushed around, manipulated, etc. for someone else, for the comfort of someone else. All the ways, all the times that I have shown up fawning, all the times I've shown up with politeness and kindness and sweetness and compassion towards people who've treated me like a piece of shit on their shoe, or talked down to me like I'm a child when I'm a fully grown woman. And I don't do that just for the performative aspect. I actually do that because my heart is genuinely a compassionate, kind heart, okay? But I think I've gotten to the point where I've had enough, and Lilith has certainly had enough, and working with her, like I said, it necessitates a need to be looking at these aspects of myself. And I'm not calling myself a victim because I've allowed myself to stay in this victim mentality for such a long time, feeling the wounds when people have projected onto me, but you know what, I'm projecting right back onto them, that expectation that they will be like that. And then that continuing to shroud myself or hide myself or minimize myself, play down, hide my light, dim my light for somebody else's comfort, for somebody else's needs, because someone else finds it uncomfortable to be near me because I'm too much, or I'm not enough, or I'm too intense, or I'm too emotional, or I'm too Emily. Like, too beautiful, not beautiful enough, too fat, too thin. I think this happens to a lot of women, okay? But instead of the divine feminine stepping up in that healthy, aligned, fullest expression, healthy expression of itself, being like, this is not something I'm going to collude with, and this is not something that I'm going to be part of, and this is not something I'm going to continue to allow to impact me and the generations that come from me. This is not something I'm going to perpetuate. Instead of that, we internalize it. We tear ourselves apart, we tear ourselves down, we tear other women down. We look at them and go, oh, look at them, they're beautiful, I want that. Tear them down. Look at that person, they're so successful, I want that, that's not what I have, tear them down. Look at that person, she looks free and liberated dancing on her Instagram feed. I wish I could be like that, but I'm not. Tear them down. And it's not necessarily that the people that are always tearing someone else down are doing it in a negative way. It may manifest just as a passive-aggressive kind of look. They may leave a lovely comment, but the intent might be like a kind of evil eye kind of intent. Do you know what I mean? And even without knowing, even without wanting that to be mean, you know, even if it's like a friend of that person's, they might not mean to have that intent towards them, but someone shows up looking pretty and they get triggered by it. Essentially, trigger is, you know, a hot word. We use it within this context to demonstrate this discomfort, because trigger is definitely overused within our community and it is not what we're using it for. But essentially, when these things come up, it is kind of, it's hitting something. It's hitting like a point of discomfort in someone else. It's like, and it's discomforting. It's uncomfortable for them. So what do? They retaliate. They react in whatever way their ego has developed in order to protect themselves. So whether that is gossiping about someone behind their back to tear them down, whether that is kind of like just looking at them with like, well, whether that is saying, oh, they're frivolous, aren't they, because they're uploading a selfie, you know. And this has happened to me. I've had so many people do this stuff to me. I've seen people do this to others. I have also been the person who's looked at selfies and been like, oh my gosh, I wish I could look like that. I think the thing that working with Lilith does is it detaches you from the reactions in a way whereby you're kind of aligned with your higher self, which is connected to Lilith. And you're seeing it from like a bird's eye perspective as to what is going on really. And you're saying, okay, I see you. I see that. I see that little green-eyed thing coming out there because her abs are on fire. And part of me is like admiring like this person is like on their Instagram feed doing this, but then part of me is also like, I wish that could be me, and part of me is also sending energy to it by just looking at it. So there's so many things going on here, and it's not that I've got malintent, I really don't, like that's really great, but I'm witnessing with Lilith everything that's going on, and it's holding up this mirror to every single little thing, and it's not like it's a burdensome kind of process either. It's like this lifting up of perspective whereby you can then see, and I'm sure there's stuff that I'm still not seeing yet, so I'm not saying that it distances me and detaches me from all of my biases, because of course it doesn't, I'm only human, but to the point where I can see it but also allow myself to hold space for that and to just be accepting of what comes from that, not tearing myself down and tearing myself apart because, you know, I might have had like a split second of like a little bit of envy there. No, like I'm a human being, that happens, but just sending that part of myself love, you know, I see you, and what is it you need? And this is Shadow Work 101. Like, we need to do a video about shadow work, we need to do a video about inner work, because they're two different, but they come together, it's really important. But the Shadow Work 101, like literally, I see you, I understand where you're coming from, and it's really tough out there, but you know what, I'm here for you, and I'm with you, and what do you need? And, you know, like, thank you for protecting me with these egoic responses. You know, I am so grateful for that. But, you know, I'm trying to work towards being a slightly more elevated version of myself, a slightly more, you know, evolved version of myself, and that maybe isn't so helpful for us, but I really want you to be part of me because you're so discerning. And so I'd like to work together to integrate you and to be grateful for you, and so that you can reap some of the benefits of the work that I'm doing as well, because we're powerful together. So it's that kind of approach to these shadows that come up. But doing this work with Lilith has necessitated that all this stuff has come up, right? So it's not just that friend hurt me, that friend projected on me, this happened because that person scapegoated me. Yes, those things did happen, but I played a part in that because I played the role of the victim or the scapegoated. I allowed that story to play out, and it's those stories that we keep perpetuating, that we keep showing up for, that we keep colluding with, that keep poisoning our minds more, and that keep poisoning our sisterhood, that keep poisoning the world, because it's the energy that is surrounding us, the energy that we are exuding and sending out there, and then we're receiving it back from our sisters. And I want to talk a little bit about the Sisterhood Wound. I want to talk more about the Witch Wound in a separate video, and this is more about the Sisterhood Wound, but the two go together. And I want to talk about both because I really feel like the key is not separation. The key is understanding there is fear around the other, and there's that illusion of separation, but really the only thing we can do is send that love out. That is the only thing we can do. And the only thing we can do is send love to the parts of ourselves that we see as being in shadow. So I see that part of myself that has that little green-eyed, envious, you know, goblin aspect. I do see that in shadow, and I'm working to bring her forward to become more together with me, not so that I can be more envious, but so I can be aware of it, and so I can show up in a way that is not projecting my crap onto other people, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to show up in that way. I want to be someone that is truly uplifting other women, not in a way like I used to, where I would be genuinely kind and friendly to someone, but it was also because I knew that other people were being cruel to them, and I knew I was in some kind of moral high ground by being good to them. That's not, that in itself is thinking that I am somehow, you know, morally superior to somebody else because I choose to be loving towards someone who other people are treating unkindly and unfairly. Yes, that is a good thing to do. I've always done that, and I will always continue to do that, but look how much I still align with that. Now this is like literally exposing all of my shadows to the whole world. I love it, it's so good, but literally Lilith is just on me at the moment to be sharing this work, which is something that Morrigan has never really done, because a lot of the work that I did with the Morrigan was a lot about sovereignty and inner sovereignty and power and just being strong enough to get through the crap. And now it's like facing some of the shadows that was still kept below, you know? And the Sisterhood Wound, it just is a problem for the Divine Feminine. And we cannot be in our full highest expression of the divine feminine if we are tearing each other down. If we continue to pit women against women, if we continue to play up to the patriarchy, if we continue to conform and perform for men, not just men as well, but for the dominant culture, according to the expectations that are set for us in a way that is deemed appropriate for us to behave, etc. If we continue to play that game in a hope that it will show others up as not being that way, and whereas we are in that way, and then there's that separation, if we continue to do that, we are just perpetuating more and more pain. We're perpetuating more and more of that sisterhood wound, more and more of that witch wound. Because the witch wound and the wounds of the patriarchy do necessitate that we treat other sisters this way. Because that way we can then win the favour of the men, the patriarchy, the dominant culture. And let's just talk about that as well, because the patriarchy does not equal men. The patriarchy is a system of political, cultural, systematic way of being, right? It's a pervasive cultural way of being. And this supports primarily white cis men and oppresses those who aren't in that. Women are highly oppressed, and BIPOC, LGBTQI+, or members of marginalised communities are not supported within the patriarchal dominant culture. So it's not just men, but it does manifest as men in some cases. So ways in which for job interviews you have had to behave a certain way in order to be perceived in a certain way by men. And I can think in popular culture right now of one woman who is bossing this, and probably you might already know who I'm talking about, because this is something that she has done her entire life. She has utilised her powers of beauty and sexuality. She's utilised that to build an empire, and that's amazing, incredible. But allegedly she's also done a lot of awful things in order to do that. I think as well, witnessing the things that she said to her sister recently. I know this is so gossipy, which is not my channel, but it's a good example in popular culture of this playing out. The ways in which she spoke to just highlights how manipulative this energy at its darkest can be. Not only that, I mean, many people do say that she is narcissistic, and I can imagine that to be true. She did a number of narcissistic things that have been verified by professionals, I think, and has continued to do that, but the way in which will perform for the patriarchy, the dominant culture, in every single way possible in order to get what she wants, and it's a means to an end. And I really think it's an excellent example of how it's playing out and how it's being received, you know. And even though we know, she still is as powerful as she is, and I am not immune, because I actually have in my drawer. So I'm checking myself, again, the mirror, but also I don't want to hold this kind of moral high ground. I don't know this person. I don't know who she really is. I don't know her heart. And she's a sister, but a family member of a woman who had a baby was called out on social media for praising so much, for being a great father figure for her children, when he allegedly is not even showing up for his own children. And this person called out and said something along the lines of, consider your sisters before you take to social media to support a man like this. And it rang true. Oh my goodness, it rang true. I'm not a gossip channel, please don't think I am, and it's kind of guilty pleasure. I'm playing into the patriarchy just by saying that I feel it, like, this is the point, this is what I mean, like everything is like analysed like to death, because Lilith is part of this journey with me. But I do enjoy watching that, and yeah, I think there is an entertainment value, but again, that's the mirror being held up for me, and it serves so that I can ask myself questions about really what I value and what I'm here to do and what I'm here to stand by. So I want to talk to you about a download that came through for me. It did happen in the dream space, but I do believe it was separate from the dreamscape because of the quality of the dream. And I've talked about this before briefly, but there is a difference in quality to astral travels, and that's what I think this was. And essentially Lilith was there and presented as a creative professor of a university who had this beautiful long red hair, it was wild, and a red dress. very creative and crone-like as well. Not young and thin, not that kind of sexualized image either of Lilith, but wild and artistic and beautiful. The class was about divinity and the good and evil, like good versus evil in divinity, like divinity as godhead in general. She introduced us to the class, and I think it was just me and a couple of other people. I remember there were a few people there, but I said, this is fantastic because I'm doing this work with Lilith and I really, really feel her presence here. And the professor, who then I realized was Lilith, kind of smirked at me and stepped forward, and she gave me this look. Then I knew it was Lilith, and she said, you know, they just spread a ton of lies about Lilith. Everything that they said, you know, all of the things that have been written about Lilith are lies. All of the stories about Lilith, all of the myths, all of the mythologies are lies. And I said, I know they demonized her and they did this and they did that and she was scapegoated, etc. And she nodded really wisely. And she said, you know, she's not evil either. She is good, but it's not what you think it is. It's not goodness how we perceive goodness to be. And divinity isn't good or evil. It is all of it. I mean, when I woke up, I was like, yeah, I know this. Like, it's not that profound. But actually, it is, because it was an actual divine lesson. And I understand now the truth of what I knew to be true before. But now it's so much clearer because of that download. It's not darkness and light. It's not one or the other. It's not that at all. It is shades of grey, but not individual shades. It's just like a spiral and a spectrum and a complete wash of colour, of all kinds of colours and different nuances, just differences. And there's so much that goes into this. It's both. And then I thought, when I woke up, I thought about the craft and I thought about the witch in the shop at the craft, and she says, true magic is neither good nor evil. It's both because nature is both. And it's so rudimentary when, you know, you watch the craft in the 90s, like when you were like 11 or 12, and then you start practicing and you do all the wicca stuff and and then you get to this point and you're like having this download at 37 and you're like, okay, I knew that, but now it's like so much clearer. But there's not a separation. There's just not. It just is. It is. And it's the same. Lilith telling me she is and she isn't. She's all of these things and none of these things. And it is this divine paradox, and that's what God is. That's what she was telling me. And that's why she was like, this is why I don't conform. This is why I left. Because the Garden of Eden, that Edenic story, that was a sham. That was not the work of a truly loving, truly divine God. That was the work of something else. And I know I've said it's not one or the other, it's not one or the other. I do believe in opposites. I do believe in there being a true divine. I do believe in there being a divinity, and I do believe in there being challenges to divinity. And that is what I would say that I think the lies are. That's what I think. We fall into this trap of believing that we are separate. We fall into this trap of believing that we win by tearing others down. We fall into the trap of believing that in order to receive what we need to receive from the patriarchy, we have to tear our sisters down. And it's something I've known, it's not true for a very, very long time, but it's not something I've known how to deal with. And it's not something I've really talked about a lot, and it's not really something I've been able to muse upon. But now, and I'm not thinking this video is going to be perfect in any way, shape or form, but there's some wisdom there, there's some gnosis, there are downloads, and there are constant downloads happening with Lilith. It is non-stop, and the shadow work is deep and it is intense, and it involves holding up a mirror every single time to look at the ways in which I've colluded with the patriarchy, the ways in which I've colluded with the sisterhood wound. And you can do the same. And I think the sisterhood wound, the witch wound, the patriarchal wounds that I've talked about, it does not have to be just the feminine. And to talk about the divine feminine, it's not just about sex and gender, because everyone has energies that are feminine, and that divine feminine lives in all of us. So it's work for everybody, I believe. And I think it is important work for witches to engage with, and some people might disagree, and that's absolutely fine as well. You know, I'm in a place where I don't have to be right. I don't need that. All I ask for is really respect and kindness and compassion within the community below, and so I ask that we keep it a safe space. So I would like to put the question to you. I would like to hear what your thoughts are on the divine feminine and the sisterhood wounds, the wounds of the patriarchy, the witch wound, etc., which we will talk about again more. And if you work with Lilith, if you work with any other deities who are coming through at this time and sharing some of this wisdom, if you have any questions for me, please let me know. If you like the video, please drop a like and a little heart emoji below. Let's say the heart with the sparkles on it. Click the like button, share with anyone else who you think would enjoy. Also, don't forget to subscribe, hit the little bell notification so you can receive notifications when I create and upload videos like this. Also, you can support me on Instagram and on Patreon. I'd love to hear from you. So I really hope this has been helpful and insightful and that it has landed for you in some kind of way. I'm sending you so much love and healing energy, supportive energy. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you are. Take care and look after yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you again in another video really soon. Mwah. Many blessings. Bye.